Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Deal. Fascinating week 4 matchup. NC State heading on the road to play Clemson. For NC State, I think the most exciting storyline, true freshman CJ Bailey. The little side story about CJ Bailey. Everybody wants to talk about the true freshman wide receiver sensation for Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith. As the recruiting guy I am, watched a lot of Jeremiah Smith at high school. Every time I watch Jeremiah Smith, I was like, who's the quarterback throwing him the rock? Yeah, it was CJ Bailey. Now he's at NC State. I thought a really impressive football game for CJ Bailey outside of that interception. You look at Clemson, though we said this heading into the season, we'll say it again. Like, if that Clemson offense looks like what we saw against App State, this is the most dangerous team in the ACC. Fired up to get into this one. Now, before we get into it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. It's been a blast doing these game predictions. The amount of support y'all continue to show to the boys means a ton. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let it fly in the comment section. Dill, I feel like we got to start with what I think CJ Bailey starts. I think you've seen it's an undisclosed injury. We're not really sure what the injury status is. You look at what CJ Bailey gave you. I think you understand that there might be some true freshman growing pains. That being said, I think he clearly gives you more juice as a quarterback than Grayson McCall does. I would like to see them roll with CJ Bailey in this football game. Now, the one caveat is you're going on the road to play the best defense in the ACC. What do you want to see from this NC State offense going up against a Clemson front seven that I'll continue to bang the table for as one of the best in the country?
Look, I think, frankly, Grayson McCall is making freshman mistakes right now, too. So you're not giving up a whole lot in that regard. And frankly, you said it. I mean, CJ Bailey's making throws that just aren't in the wheelhouse of Grayson McCall.
Not even wheelhouse, but like Grayson McCall cannot make some of the throws that CJ Bailey brings to the table.
So I think you saw that offense open up a little bit. I thought you can cover more of the field. I think some of the wide receivers like Rodgers feels like he can be more engaged if CJ Bailey's the quarterback. And frankly, if you're gonna have, there's not a world in that I think Grayson McCall can beat this Clemson team. I just don't think he can open up this offense enough to move the ball against Clemson. So I think at the end of the day, I'm with you. CJ Bailey should be the guy going because at least he gives you the shot. And do I think he gives you a particularly great chance against Clemson? No, but I don't think Grayson McCall even gives you a hope of moving the football. So I think CJ Bailey should be rolling.
Yeah, that's the frustrating aspect about Grayson McCall is you brought Grayson McCall to NC State knowing that there's a reason he's not going to the NFL after all the production he had at Coastal Carolina. Like, there are certain throws and kind of just the arm talent is not elite for Grayson McCall. You brought him in to be extremely accurate in those short intermediate concepts, not make a lot of mistakes. And I think the frustrating part is that he's made a lot of those mistakes that you just didn't want to see from him during the first couple games. Bill, I think you're right. Like, the juice that CJ Bailey brings you, although you might have to endure some true freshman growing pains.
I mean, they need to be able to make big-time throws against this Clemson team because, given the way their offensive line's playing, they're not going to pound it on Clemson. And nobody pounds it on Clemson. Even Georgia had to open it up and make some things happen through the air. So, again, the way Clemson plays, they're going to play a lot of man coverage. You're going to need to make big-time throws in the short windows. And just Grayson McCall, his arm talent really isn't fit to do that kind of thing. Yeah, he can play on rhythm at times when he starts rolling, but he really hasn't found that. I think they have enough weapons on the boundary that is NC State to make some things happen. But you need a quarterback who's going to go make some big time throws. And I just
that's the biggest the question you have for NC State is I think you brought in Grayson McCall thinking your run game was going to be pretty dang effective, like it normally is for NC State. 3.2 yards per carry, 107th in the country. I don't think you can rely on a steady run game if you're NC State. So you want to bring in a quarterback that lets you push the ball down the field and potentially give you some explosive plays. Like you said, there are playmakers, difference makers on this NC State offense, specifically on the outside. I think CJ Bailey might be better fit to get the football to those dudes. Though I think the second thing is, all right, so if NC State's going to struggle running the football, which I think is a fair assumption. I don't think the NC State fans will fight us on that, right? You're struggling to run the football against a lot of teams right now. Running on this Clemson front seven ain't going to be that easy. How does NC State stay on schedule? Because, again, if you can't run the football, you got to find some other ways. And I would like to see NC State maybe get creative like they did last year, like Kevin Concepcion getting on some end arounds, maybe some swing passes. You got some guys that can operate with the football in their hands.
And that stuff was kind of effective for Georgia. I mean, once they went away from just trying to pound at Clemson, and I just don't think anyone can really pound at Clemson. They started to use Arian Smith, get the ball to the boundary, made some plays, and I think you kind of said it. Kevin Concepcion, I don't think there's a better player in college football to do that kind of stuff. And Kevin Concepcion obviously can play really high-level wideout, but obviously what I think makes him especially unique is his ability to make plays with the balls in his hands. So I'm kind of with you. I think they need to use him in a very similar way. Line him up in the backfield occasionally, get him on swing passes, and see if they can get him on a one-on-one matchup with a safety, with a linebacker. Because, again, Clemson likes to play an aggressive style of defense. They'll give you that and
they'll give you a lot of man coverage. Like, so if you're NC State, you're expecting man coverage, and you're trying to find matchups and concepts that will be able to separate your wide receivers. This Clemson defense, like, I don't even want to go to the numbers, right? We've seen 2 games. One, like, that Clemson defense played a phenomenal first half, and then the offense couldn't stay on the field. And at some point, Georgia just kind of broke through. Then in App State, that game was 42-0 in the first quarter. And so, like, it's kind of hard to gauge from a number standpoint. If you're Clemson, you're trying to heat up. If it's going to be the true freshman, you're heating him up. You're trying to CJ Bailey's a cat that he can move outside of the pocket. So you want to heat him up, but also kind of keep him inside the pocket, not let him get outside the pocket and extend plays. This NC State offensive line has struggled not only running the football, but they haven't been great in pass.
That's a fundamental concern. I think you said it. I mean, it's just like this Clemson defensive line, if you can't play good up front, you don't give yourself a great chance. And for right now, that's been the most frustrating part, I think, for this NC State season is we kind of talk like they return a lot of production, add Zeke Correll in through the portal from Notre Dame, starting center for that team, and you're just not playing particularly good football. You're not playing physically. You're not running the ball. And obviously, you're giving up a fair amount in pass pro. So, again, I look at this Clemson defensive line. They can get after you. They can get after this team, I think, with 4, which, again, I think presents a bit of an issue in terms of what NC State probably wants to do in terms of finding their matchups on the boundary. So, yeah, they got their work cut out for them. That's kind of why, again, like to kind of round that out, you look at CJ Bailey, at least it gives you a chance to do something great.
That's kind of where I'm sitting with it too. And do I love the idea of having CJ Bailey, a true freshman's first start, go on the road against Clemson? No, absolutely not. I think it's what NC State has to do to give him a chance to win this football game. Go to this Clemson offense still. Can we just see if you're Clemson, you're replicating the game plan you had against App State. And I think the biggest storyline, we talked about it after the game, the emergence of Brian Wesco. We just needed somebody to step up on the boundary, to work vertically down the field, to kind of just open up this Clemson offense. And we weren't really sure who was it going to be. Was it going to be some of the true freshmen, TJ Moore, Brian Wesco? Was it going to be someone like Adam Randall? It emerges, and Brian Wesco sounds to be the guy. Having that kind of, and I don't even know if Brian Wesco needs to catch that many passes, although I want him to catch some passes, but just the mere fact that you have that vertical presence now, it's going to open it up for Antonio Williams. It's going to open it up for Jake Bringastool. And I think the second most important thing that we saw against App State, though, Clemson was running the football extremely effectively. K. Klubnik's numbers are much better when they get to play action. If you can't run the football, it's hard to get to play action. And so not only the emergence of Brian Wesco, but Clemson getting this run game going so they can work their play action off of it. Those are probably the 2 things that I'm looking for with this Clemson offense.
And obviously, NC State, when they went on and played Tennessee, they really struggled containing that rushing attack. Now, I will say, I think Tennessee's offensive line, they've proven a little more than, frankly, what we've seen from Clemson. And Clemson's got talented players. I think that's been a frustrating unit for the past couple of years. Obviously, against Georgia, certainly had some struggles, as almost any team will. I mean, it's a Georgia defensive line at the end of the day. But this is going to be a big one, I think, for this Clemson offensive line. Struggled last year against NC State. Yeah, NC State showed a little bit of vulnerability playing the run, especially when a team's just going to line up and play a very physical brand like what Tennessee was doing. This is a big test, I think, for this Clemson offensive line. Can they prove that you can put the game?
I think it's a big test not only for the Clemson offensive line, but the offense as a whole. Like, okay, you struggled to find your rhythm week 1 against Georgia. We kind of knew Clemson wasn't going to find their rhythm against what I think is the best defense in the country. But then they found the rhythm against App State. Can you find your rhythm against a team in NC State that has probably a top-end defense in the ACC? Maybe not an elite defense nationally, but as long as Tony Gibson and Dave Dorn are there, like, it's going to be a damn good defense. this is the team I want to see Clemson kind of turn it up against and kind of put it all together. All right, Kate Klubnik is coming off his best game as a Clemson Tiger. This offense is coming off their best game in a very long time on the offensive side of the football. You get a bye week, you get healthy. Can you replicate that performance Saturday afternoon against a very quality NC State defense? That's what I'm looking for here. Dill, let's get into the pick here. Clemson 16.5-point favorites at home. Who are you taking here?
Nah, give me the Wolfpack. 16.5 is a lot of points. And I know the Wolfpack haven't exactly looked particularly great all year so far, but I still think this is a good team. They play good in big moments. And I honestly think CJ Bailey gives them a little bit of juice. I think he gives them a spark. And Grayson McCall, frankly, is dragging that team down in my eyes, making real rookie mistakes, not making any big-time plays that got you kind of excited. CJ Bailey, yeah, he came in through the pick early, but aside from that, I mean, he was making some legit NFL throws. And that, I think that rejuvenates this NC State team that isn't as bad as everyone thinks. I think Tennessee might be better.
I do. So I'm going to take Clemson in the points here. I think you made a really good point. And I think it pertains for Clemson too. Like there was this massive overreaction when Clemson lost to Georgia. Clemson kind of shows they're still a very good football team against an App State team that a lot of people picked App State to win that game outright. I think it's a similar conversation. Like Dale, I think Tennessee, especially early on in the season, is just kind of playing at another level. So I'm not sure if I'm ready to sell my stock at NC State.
That game just got away from him. And Grayson McCall was making bad plays. He was fumbling. He's taking sacks. He's throwing picks. It was just like, I mean, that game just got away, and that happens. I think, frankly, you say the same thing about Clemson and Georgia. Like that game just got away because Clemson was making penalties and not saying.
Yeah, 100%. I think it spiraled for both programs. I'm going to keep it simple here. I'm taking Clemson the points because you don't start a true freshman quarterback against Dabo Swinney at home. That's kind of where I start. And then if it is Grayson McCall, I probably feel even better about Clemson.
I know I'm putting a lot of stock in CJ Bailey, but give me.
I'm excited.
I liked what he was doing.
I'm fired up about CJ. He's been a guy that I thought was criminally under recruited out of high school. Like I think everybody just assumed, he's only putting up numbers because of Jeremiah Smith and JoJo Trader. I'm like, no, this dude can absolutely sling the pill. I'm excited. This is going to be a very fun game. Give me Clemson the points. You're on NC State. We'll recap this one Saturday afternoon. Hey, appreciate you guys rocking with it again. All the support. It means the world to the boys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.